Greetings, I'm Brigitte Mars. I'm on my porch in downtown Boulder, Colorado. I'm an herbalist, author. I teach herbal medicine at Naropa University. I have 18 books out, and I'm so delighted to share some information on this path of herbal wisdom with you all. So I will take some of the questions early on and state them. So we get to pick 10 questions. So I pick, what is the first plant you remember having a relationship with as a child? I would say flax seeds. I had this wonderful French-Canadian grandmother, and she kept a jar of flax seeds on the kitchen counter. And every day, all the relatives would come by and eat a handful of flax seeds. And she attributed the essential oils in there, or the essential fatty acids in there, to be good for your hair, your skin, your nails, keep you regular. And one time, she and I found a little wounded bird in the woods, and she fed it flax seeds, and a few days later it was able to fly away. And I said, I want to know more about these herbs. I must have been 3 or 4, and I just recently wrote a book on the runes with Uba McLean, and Wanjo is one of the ancient plants, flax. And did you know that flax, as my grandmother pointed out, not only was this wonderful medicinal seed, but that you could make a linen out of it, les grains de lin, that's how you say flaxseed en français, les grains de lin. The flax fibers were spun into a thread and then woven or turned into lace to make linen. And then she also pointed out that the new linoleum floor was made from the oil of the linseed or the flaxseed. Cool, huh? Flax, linum. I love this question about what are some of my favorite nutrient-dense snacks. So, something that I make, especially when I'm in the mode of writing, is raw cacao nibs. Maybe I put some blueberries in there, which are good for your eyes. Maybe a sprinkle of bee pollen, perhaps a spoon of tahini for calcium and good fats for your brain, good for your bones. And maybe you could add a little maca powder to there, maybe a little maple syrup. And if it's too hard and crunchy from the cacao nibs, just add a little water. I do like that. And if I eat that with a spoon, and I can just face piles of trials with smiles, as the Moody Blues said. Another snack I might not use it when I'm writing unless I'm really going soul deep in that kind of writing. Then I might need to eat some blue popcorn with good quality olive oil drizzled on it, nutritional yeast, maybe even Celtic salt, with some herbs like rosemary, and if you don't mind getting blue teeth, some spirulina. Just wipe your mouth before you go out. If I were to have one more, I would say bananas with almond butter is always good, or apples with almond butter. Those are some of my favorite nutrient-dense snacks. And of course, eating flowers and leaves as you walk around in nature is like some of the best superfoods. Eating things so fresh, they just go right into you. And I try to top things off with a few broccoli sprouts. How did I begin to mold my herbal path as a teacher? And what were my first teaching experiences like? So the first classes I did were for my daughter's brownie troops. I have 2 daughters, Sunflower Sparkle Mars, who's a preschool teacher, and Rainbow Harmony Mars, who has been an international model, yogini, actress, and activist. Google her. And of course I would do things with them, and then I would do things with their brownie troops. And then of course after brownie troops it was like, church ladies and things that felt really easy, and domains of friends. And then I distributed a multi-level thing, Shackley, for a while, so I learned to put on little presentations for people, talking about the benefits of different supplements and biodegradable cleaning products. That was good practice. So I worked in a natural food store starting in the early 80s called Pearl Street Market, the first incarnation of Alfalfa's Market, if you've ever heard of that legendary store. And I was about to give it up as like an herbalist. I was making minimum wage bagging brown rice at a health food store. And John Hay, one of the founders of Celestial Seasonings, got me a gig being the herbalist for this wonderful natural food store that had a bulk herb department. And their problem was they didn't sell enough bulk herbs to make the space worth it. And I realized that people who already shop in the natural food store often know about some of the herbs. And I thought, I need to take it out there. I need to educate my community about plants. So then I started doing a radio show called Naturally. And I've had that show going on for like 40 years. But I felt that's a way to teach the community. And then they'll come in. And it's a volunteer thing, but it's only like 3 minutes, but I might talk about herbs for allergies or herbal aphrodisiacs or the health benefits of microdosing or lemon balm or don't spray the dandelions. So that's a way of teaching. But so I started teaching at Naropa University, even though I didn't have credentials. It wasn't that kind of school. They said, leave your credentials at the door. We care what you do. Started by Chongen Rinpoche. So teaching there. And then at the health food store, I started, being able to give my flyers out about other classes. I started teaching in my home. And at first it was just like, 4 people around the coffee table. And then I realized wherever I went, I wanted to lead herb walks. So, one of the things I would do is maybe go a day ahead of time and, study up, walk around. I have to tell you, I won a trip with Bioforce, the Swiss herb company, for mentioning their name, Bioforce, makers of Santa Sapina cough lozenges with pine syrup. But I won a trip to go to Switzerland, and I was like, I won't know the plants from there. I live in Colorado, and there were so many of the similar plants. But wherever I am, if I'm going to do an herb walk, I'll try to schedule it the last day so I can learn as many plants as I am. It's a work in progress. And one of my friends once said, to learn a subject well, offer to teach a class in it. And again, one time someone even asked me to teach a class on plant poisons, and I don't really use those. But it was for a mystery writers group. And I thought, well, that's a challenge. I'm going to research it and put it together so they don't poison the wrong person with the wrong side effects or the wrong, antidotes. So I always step up to a challenge. And teaching, it's not just about you, it's about offering this information for the people and the planet and the plants. And this is, as crazy as the world is, it's like we can all do something, and just teaching people about the plants, even if it's, an herb walk around your neighborhood. I live right downtown. I don't drive. I walk everywhere. My life is an herb walk. I'm always, scouting out, where the wild things grow. But, teach everyone. And, consider writing articles for magazines or podcasts. That's a way of teaching too. It doesn't have to be a classroom thing. You could be filming from, in your own domain. So hopefully that gives you a few answers. I'm here to share what is the one thing I do daily to practice my craft. Well, I do think if I'm going to give health advice to others, I should be in good health myself. And so there's a lot of different things that I do on a daily basis. One that I almost always do is a Taoist exercise called the deer, which is said to be youthening and invigorating to the hormones. I do that. It's in my book, The Sexual Herbal. I also, of course, floss my teeth and brush my teeth. Often drink lemon and water, try to drink a green juice, a salad, take an aromatherapy bath, stand on my head, do yoga, clean something, do some feng shui. And I'll share something with you. I don't get to do all those things every day, So except like brush my teeth and do the deer. So I made a list of all the healthy things I could do in a day's time. A big long list. And I don't have time to do that. But what if I made a list of all the healthy things I could do in a day's time and then wrote the days of the week and tried to do 7 to 10 of those a day? Then at the end of the week, you feel like, whoa, I did so many healthy things. So those are things that I do on a daily basis. Take supplements, drink herbal tea, read something, speak affirmatively. I try to do things for every chakra. Take a walk, eat wild food. So, this technique probably worked in elementary school, where you had a chart on the fridge, make your bed, empty the dishwasher, set the table. So you could do like a health chart. I love that. Blessed be. This one's about some ideas on running a clinical practice. So I always ask clients to keep a food journal for a few days before they come. Not only what you eat, but sometimes when you eat is good. When I see someone, eating their main meal at midnight and wondering why they can't sleep and have digestive problems, that could be a problem. I also ask people to bring in any drugs, herbs, or vitamins that they're using. I don't need to see their oregano or their weed, but you know what I mean. Things that acupuncturists, chiropractors, NDs, MDs have recommended. I want to see all that. I also welcome them to bring in a list of questions. It's also great, I used to just say this to women, but to men too, please don't wear fingernail polish, because I really like to look at people's hands, and the health of our nails can tell us a lot of things. So I usually welcome people with a cup of tea, and I always keep a record of what I recommended to them. Maybe you said 1 drop and they thought you said a dropper full, or vice versa. Maybe you said like 1 grain of bee pollen and they thought you meant 1 teaspoon of bee pollen. So keep a record for yourself. I always ask people to let me know how it works for them, but keeping track. I also encourage people not to wear makeup, because that could really change the way that you see them. So again, a little makeup might not be a big deal, but we want to be able to look at people. I always ensure people are going to have confidentiality, that I'm not going to talk about them to their friends that I know or housemates. So those are just a few ideas on running a clinical practice. All the best. What are some of the wonderful things about being an herbalist? Well, you get to help people, help plants, help the planet, help the creator, make a living. They're not burning us anymore. You get to help your family, you get to save money, save water, save the bees. Seems like a good idea to me. How does an herbalist retain so much information regarding clinical herbalism, and how do you share it? Okay, so learning things. Well, I do believe that most herbalists are sort of bibliomaniacs. Yes, we love books, and of course I know there's a lot of things online, but I love books. So what I do is I read. I just wrote this book on herbs and ruins called Healing from the Tree, and 2 other authors wrote in it too. So I always highlight in yellow what's important. Okay, so I love to highlight in yellow, because yellow is the color of cerebral stimulus. But I want to share that I went to massage school, class of 77, Boulder School of Massage Therapy, and I had all these wonderful notes, not only in herbalism, which I studied with Wynne Smith, and also with William Lesaussier, who was teaching outside of the school, but I also had classes on acupressure and 5-element theory and nutrition and anatomy and physiology. And I realized that all those notes were just in notebooks, and will I ever look at those again? So when I was still quite young and my children were young and napping, I would copy all the notes that I had from school and organize it onto file cards. And I realized that, probably people would do this on computers now, but that act of transcribing my notes onto file cards and maybe organizing it like herbs for arthritis, diet for arthritis, homeopathy for arthritis. So I did that. And again, I will quote something I said in another one of these segments. The best way to learn a subject well is to offer to teach a class on it, but also to write an article on it. So let's say when I was going to massage school, if I had a paper to write, which you inevitably do, I would, because one of my daughters had asthma at the time, I wrote every paper like, 5-element theory for the lungs, the metal element, or nutrition for respiratory health, or herbs for respiratory health. So I really think that those are a couple learning techniques. I do read a lot, again, with a yellow highlighter. I love learning. If I'm at a festival, I'm going to take other people's classes, not just teach my own. And I read other people's books, and I read every issue of Herbalgram. I even read in the bathtub. You might say that, being an herbalist can be a little bit nerdy. And I want you to know that I have a phone app called I Plant, letter I Plant with Brigitte Mars. It won't be the first thing that comes up, so make sure you do I Plant with Brigitte Mars. And it's a phone app where it has wonderful pictures of the plants by Martin Wall, along with a lot of the text that's in my book, The Desktop Guide to Herbal Medicine, and it tells you, what can you do with chickweed or plantain or andrographis? Is it edible? Is it safe for pregnant women? I Plant with Brigitte Mars. So, this is a subject that you can study your whole life. Isn't that interesting? And then if you master Western herbalism, you can integrate, other cultures, Asian and Native American and Ayurveda. It's so vast. And wherever you go, you want to learn the plants. So usually wherever I go, I either bring a book with me, or I buy a book at the airport, Wildflowers of Costa Rica. I also use the phone app Picture This. It's not free, it's $20 a year, probably more by now, but Picture This, I take pictures of everything. It even works in the jungles of Colombia on a bridge in the middle of nowhere. So Picture This and I Plant. Keep learning your whole life. It's amazing. And this is a subject that takes a long time to get really good at. So if you want to be an herbalist, get ready to be kind of a nerd that gets to wear cool clothes and hang out with the flowers. What is my favorite way to introduce herbs to children? Well, if you have children and they have a health ailment, and we know you love your children, then you try it out on them. You try out the peppermint tea or the chamomile or the lemon balm or some of those children-friendly herbs. And by healing those that you love so very much and would never impair or imperil their lives, that's a great way to get started, of course. My daughter Sunflower and I ran an herb camp for kids for a number of years before either of my daughters were moms, and we taught them things like herbal crafts, like study spray with rosemary oil in it, and bath salts with lavender essential oil. They were all initiated into making nettle soup. We learned to embroider flower fairies and elves. There was all kinds of herbal things that we did. We made herbal tea slushies with a little ice chopping machine. We made popsicles using fruit juice. Another time in an after-school program called Herbal Wizardry for Kids, we did things like making ice cream by pouring maple syrup on snow, stuff like that. So I do have a CD out called Herbal Wizardry for Kids. It's also downloadable. But I will share that when my kids were young, they inevitably would say, "Hey Mom, I need some money." And I said, "Okay, I'll give you a quarter for every plant you can identify, 50 cents if you know the Latin name, and $1 if you can tell me 3 uses." And both my daughters, Sunflower and Rainbow, do use herbs right now. Rainbow has written a book called The 21-Day Superstar Cleanse, and Sunflower works at Sunflower Preschool. What is your favorite herb that you use most often? Well, sometimes I get asked, if you were going to another planet, what 3 herbs would you bring? And I usually say dandelion. Wrote a book on that, Dandelion Medicine. Nettles, Nettle Power is another book I wrote. I love those 2 herbs. Absolutely. Food, medicine, so many things. And then I would have to be honest and say I would bring cannabis. And I remember one time Terry Willard's son Yarrow was asking Roy Upton and me, what herb would you bring if you were going to another planet? And Roy said coconut. And I said cannabis, and coconut is definitely very useful. It is the largest seed on the planet, but it doesn't grow everywhere. So if we're going extraterrestrially, we would like something that could grow on most continents. And I do know that hemp or cannabis grows very easily, and we can make food, fuel, paper, fabric, medicine, animal bedding, hempcrete, so many things. So whether you are not, it is an herb that could really help regrow civilization. Sometimes I say overgrow the government. Okay, those are my 3 herbs: dandelion, nettles, and cannabis. And those are all herbs that I do use. Nettle tea, I love overnight infusion, and we eat all kinds of dandelion things, dandelion cake, dandelion muffins. Check out the recipes in my books. And fortunately, I love that none of those things are really endangered in the wild, if you know what I mean. Okay, peace and blessings. How did I become an herbalist? Well, as a child, I really loved books about herbalists, and sometimes the herbalists were witches. I do remember The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear had a big influence on me. And often there were herbal potions, but because of the influence of my French-Canadian grand-mère and her use of folk remedies, not only did she use things like garlic and cabbage, flax seeds, plantain, she also read tea leaves and palms and could predict the weather. So even in probably middle school, whenever I had a paper due, rather than just writing about something, I would pick a subject so I could maybe learn about herbs. So for French class, I would write les plantes médicinales pendant la Révolution, like herbs used during the Revolution, the French Revolution. Or maybe I would write plantas medicinales de Mexico for Spanish. I think it's Jedi to be multilingual, and of course helps with all those Latin names. For chemistry, I wrote about phytochemistry. So I would choose my subject to write about to be a way to learn more about plant medicine. And again, I've mentioned how I always would highlight in yellow. And I went to massage school, and that gave me a good foundation to know about herbs and anatomy and physiology and pathology and all that. And all of those healing arts, reflexology, because I don't just do herbs. I do, a little bit of all of it, color therapy, aromatherapy. But I lived 2.5 years in a teepee, pretty much off of wild edible plants. And this was in the early 70s. And I'll tell you, nothing like hunger will get you motivated to learn what is growing around you. So I did all that. And then I have shared in another episode how I, worked in natural food stores and then ended up becoming the herbalist for a really large natural food store called Alfalfa's Market for 20 years. So I loved having a job where you could learn and demo a different tea and order the herbs and, learn their quality. But this is a subject that you never stop learning. So every time I offer to teach a class on something, I will, research it. And, just because I've taught a class such as natural remedies for mental and emotional health, I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. I'm going to continue to polish that craft. So I just, kept doing it. And I remember standing in the Rocky Mountain Center for Botanical Studies, a school started by Feather Jones. And I'm teaching a class and I'm making good money and just a few blocks from my house. And I thought, yes, this is a dream come true. I am a herbalist. Yay. Because teaching others really helps you stay on top of your game. And I also want to share the first time I taught a class at an herbal conference. Who was in the audience? Michael Tierra, Chris Hobbs, David Hoffman, and David Winston. Oh my God. All teachers that I really love and respect. But I figured if I can do my first big class with them in the audience, and again, there was a question I couldn't answer, so I gave it over to one of my mentors, Michael Tierra. So have fun on this journey. Blessed be. What are some things that I might recommend for ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? It seems like a lot of people of all ages have that. Well, I do think about what's the cause of it, and very often kids who've had a lot of antibiotics, maybe for ear infections or strep throat, often develop food sensitivities, and the kids that had a lot of those problems are often the ones that have ADHD later on. So we want to think about nourishing the gut microbiome, maybe taking a probiotic. And I would also look at what food sensitivities the person might have. We know that sensitivities and allergens can cause inflammation in the gut, in the joints, in the skin, but also in the brain. And I might recommend things like asking, what does the person crave the most? Very often it's what they crave the most. Dairy, wheat, corn, soy, peanut butter, they're all common allergens. So I might recommend a fish oil supplement. And it's interesting because a lot of the drugs that are given for ADHD are kind of speedy, things like Ritalin and Adderall. So you might try sedative herbs like valerian, or even, which is used a lot in Europe, but you might also try gentler children's herbs like chamomile, passion flower, catnip. But you might also try some stimulating herbs to help focus, like green tea or yerba mate. I think I said a fish oil supplement. There's also vegan sources made from freshwater algae. I would even think of, decorating the home in a more calm scenario, using colors like blue, not like Star Wars sheets and overstimulation. I would play slower music. Also, things like flickering lights. I'd be careful of fluorescent lights, which are often in schools. I might even think about, it's so much easier if one person has to be on a special diet if the whole family does it. You don't want to be one of those people who says, you get the beige cupcakes and you get the pink cupcakes with the flowers on them. So we want, actually everyone can have pink cupcakes if you use dragon fruit for color, or beet powder. Anyways, just saying. So calmer music, less flickering lights, herbal supplements, tranquil environment, meditation, martial arts might also be a good practice. CBD, I know that might not be available for everybody, but CBD is also proving to be very helpful. Sometimes you have to try a few things to see what's going to work, and work it might be, but the idea that you're getting healthier, stronger, and not being medicated for decades seems like a great way to raise a child and take care of yourself. So this is for the question, how does one deal with the business side of herbalism? So lots of ways. I'm a big believer in having multiple streams of income. Not only does it make life very interesting, but if something falls through, then you have many other avenues. So I work in a retail store called Alive and Well, and they are so open to all the herbalists, naturopaths, acupuncturists that work there, passing out their flyers. It's also a great thing, I find, that for all the people that randomly call me that think I'm a 1-800 dial an herbalist person, which I'm not, I can tell them, it's free to come talk to me every Monday at the store. I also love that I get constant trainings and that I'm paying taxes that are withdrawn automatically. And I'm always learning. I love that. And get lots of free samples. I also get to hear feedback from people about what works. That's one thing I do, work in a retail store. I also have a private practice, and I'm here in my office right now, and I'm very much about, like, I have a wealth corner, which is over here. I have all the books I've written in my wealth corner. This is reputation. I have all my diplomas there. So I have a private practice. That's another method. I also write books. I don't get really rich writing the books, but I do get some great speaking gigs. I sell a little bit of doTERRA essential oils. My daughter Rainbow is very successful at selling doTERRA essential oils. I teach classes at many different places. And sometimes I do things for free. The radio show I do for free. So as far as a business, again, multiple streams of income. Activate your wealth corner, which is the furthest diagonal to the left from your main door. What do you have there? Maybe you want to have a little bank there or some, beautiful art. I think it's always good to have business cards out and flyers out. I mean, there's so many opportunities to free promotion. And, of course, it started out, helping family and friends. And of course, as you continue in this path, you can give your friends a discount. I'm also a psychedelic sitter, and I'm also an end-of-life doula. I keep my prices really fair for that. I've always liked the saying, if you give more than you promise, people will be pleased. If you promise more than you give, people will be disappointed. So we want people to be pleased. So, be willing to promote yourself. Just because you graduate from an herb school doesn't mean that people are going to call you. So you have to be willing to go out and constantly using all the avenues to promote what you do. What about writing a column in a magazine or a newspaper? I've certainly done that. I used to have a column called Ask Dr. Root in the LA Free Press. So think of it as far as business, like every opportunity you get to share this herbal wisdom is an opportunity for growth and evolution. Gets to help people and the planet. What a great way to make a living.